So here's inappropriate application of power. So what you see, you should see that again, but I've waited now, and I've actually started bending my rod at the very beginning back here. Whoops. What's the difference? The difference is that I'm punching it at the very end. Okay, so Barbara, what I'd like you to do is think about when you get to here, just a nice smooth, just like you're throwing a football to a little kid, nice and smooth. And at the very end, I want you to just concentrate on this. Let me see your hand. Go ahead and do that for me. Just this. Get your hand back a little bit farther. There you go. And I just did that. There you go. Good. Try to stop your hand a little bit higher up. Ready? There we go. Okay, go ahead. Nice and smooth on a forward cast. Okay, this time, now you're creeping a little bit, so what I want you to do is I want you to turn around and watch your rod tip and make sure it doesn't creep. Stop it. There, now go. There you go. So now you've got both a smooth cast. Okay, watch your creep. There, very nice. Okay, so that's something you can do. If a person has an inappropriate application of power, one of the things you can do is just remind them and just have them do a lot of pantomiming. You can even have them take the line off. You can have them do paintbrush. You can have them throw a ball or a dart, something where they get used to just doing this. The other thing you can do, what I want you to do is put that in there. Now when you get back to here, you're going to have to lengthen your casting stroke now a little bit. So you're going to have to lengthen it out, and then I want you to pull that rod tip forward. Just pull it forward. Ready? Pull it forward. There. Do it again. Good. Do it again. Do it again. Pull it forward. There you go. That prevents them from snapping the wrist at the very end of the forward cast, which is where you usually get a tailing loop, is that snap at the end. So by making them have a longer casting stroke and eliminating some of the wrist, what happens is they've got to have a nice smoother stroke. It's a lot like a golf swing or a tennis swing. So that's something you can do in terms of stopping an inappropriate application of power. What happens if you have too much slack? A lot of times an examiner, what they'll do is they'll finish their last presentation, their last demonstration, and then instead of throwing the line straight down while you're being sort of preoccupied, they'll put the line down here and set it here with a bunch of slack. So that's one way of creating slack. The way to get rid of that slack, you've only got really two choices to get rid of. Well, you got three. I can back up and just walk back and take out the slack. I can pull all my line back and take out the slack and start all over again. Or you can do a roll cast to take out the slack, which is one of the more important functions of a roll cast. So if you've got a lot of slack, taking this slack out with a roll cast is an excellent way of dealing with slack. But that's one of the more common ways that examiners will do slack. I think examiners could have a pause too long, and that's slack, which is going to cause, because your line is down because of all that slack, even if you have a pretty much the straight, a normal casting arc, you're going to get a big wide loop because of that slack. The most common way that a poor stop is going to be exhibited is, Barbara, I just want you to cast. Okay, watch Barbara. Okay, this time what I want you to do, Barbara, is I want you to just kind of make don't stop quite so abruptly right here. Just kind of slow down your rod, don't stop. Okay, well, no, not that. You want to keep false casting. Keep false casting. Okay. Okay, now I want you to do the same thing. By the way, if you'll notice, Barbara's creeping again. So some of the things you're going to have to, I would just forget that right now because we're working on a stop. And you were doing it very well. Here's one thing you can do. Go ahead, Barbara. Lift it up. I would just say, Barbara, I want you to stop when your rod tip hits here, and then I want you to follow the line down.
Oh.
Okay, do it again. Do it again. There you go. Good. So now do false casting. A nice, crisp stop. Okay, now turn around, and while you're doing that, we'll have you do the second thing, which is stop your creep. There you go. There you go. A little bit farther back. There you go. There. Nice. Okay. Now she doesn't have a poor stop. So a lot of times a poor stop actually looks like it's got too big a loop. A poor stop will have too big a loop. But what do? You look at that too big a loop, and if you think to yourself it's too much wrist, you better check the wrist. If you're Bruce Richards, he's going to tell you, hey, you're looking at the line, you got a big open loop. It may not be from too much wrist. You can have not a lot of wrist and you're still having a poor stop, and that's going to create too big a loop. And the last one is going to be a tracking error. So you're the student and you're watching this. Here's what you're going to see. You don't see a tail, you don't see too much wrist, you don't see a lot of slack, you see a pretty good cast. If you see a pretty good cast, and you're standing on this side of me especially, then you've got to be suspicious. It's not a tail, it's not too much wrist, it's not a poor stop, there's nothing wrong really with the loops from your perspective, at least not much wrong. What you're going to have to do is ask the guy, can you do it again? Or the lady, whoever's your examiner, can I see that again? And walk behind him, and what you should see is this. So if you see that, that's a tracking error, and you're going to see that I have an entire video on tracking errors. One against a wall is really good. There are a number of people who do different kinds of drills. I think Tim Lawson in Long Beach does a really good drill where he just has you cast here and then bring it back, and it should land straight behind you. If it lands here, way over to the side, you've got a tracking error. So you just do this, straight behind you, turn around, take out the slack, do it again. And what that does is that's one good drill. That's a drill that Tim does a lot, but there are other drills too. I like up against a building. You can also just watch your hand. So just watch your hand and make sure your rod, if you look at my reel, go ahead and zoom in on my reel a little bit. If the plane of my reel is here, and all of a sudden you see the plane of your reel do this, it should be doing this. If it rotates, then you got a tracking error. So that's task number 22. Make sure you've practiced and you can do all of those, because they're going to ask you to do those. A lot of times they don't. If the test is going really well, again, if you've just nailed the whole test, task 22 is pretty easy. A, you're already completely ready to take the test, or ready to take task number 22. B, your examiners, they're already convinced that you know how to do all this stuff because you've done a lot of it beforehand. So that's task number 22.